So I'll start the show with my favorite video from the weekend that I saw, which is a 12-year-old Canadian girl talking about the banks. You may or may not have seen this over the weekend. It kind of went somewhat viral. It's got 1.4 million views, which is incredible. But this is from a concerned citizen here in Canada, coming from another concerned citizen, myself. So this says the banks and government have colluded to financially enslave the people of Canada. This is a 12-year-old girl saying this. Brilliant 12-year-old girl exposes banking scam in language a 12-year-old can understand. Apply the same logic to every central bank-backed country, which is most, if not all. So here we go. We got a minute video here. This is incredible stuff. And as we've talked about on the show before, Justin Trudeau has done an incredible amount of damage, but at the same time, he's also woken up a lot of Canadians to the whole thing that's happening here, the whole scam, the whole enslavement that we're going through. So this 12-year-old girl can thank Justin Trudeau for creating her.
Have you ever wondered why Canada is in debt? Have you ever wondered why the government forces Canadians to pay so many taxes? Have you ever wondered why the bankers from the largest private banks are becoming wealthier and the rest of us are not? What I have discovered is the banks and the government have colluded to financially enslave the people of Canada. The government borrows money from the private banks. They then lend the debt-based money to Canada with compounded interest. The government then continues to increase taxation of Canadians year after year in order to pay back the interest on the exponentially growing national debt. What results is inflation. The government gave the banks the ability to loan out money that doesn't exist in the form of loans. They click a key on a computer and generate the fake money out of thin air. They don't actually have it in their bank vaults. Presently, the banks only have $4 billion on reserve, but they have loaned out over $1.5 trillion. It's their freedom and they need to be stopped. He said the following, and I hope that all of you remember this. Never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.
Okay. That's so incredible to see, honestly, especially the part at the end. Remember this, she said. Never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. In fact, it is the only thing that ever has. So there's somebody who actually within the Living in the Future community a couple weeks ago asked, I think I put a question out there. What do you want to talk about going into the future when I get back? All this kind of stuff. I think it was Bodie who asked, like, what's the whole mission here? What are you trying to accomplish with the channel, with the Living in the Future community? And I think that just going back to what she said at the end there, that never doubt a small group of people and the ability to change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. And I really believe that. I think that, from day one, I think that there's quite a few people in the chat here and watching on Zap.stream who have been here for a long time now in this community here. And one thing I've said from the very start is that it's going to happen. It takes one person, one day at a time, one person at a time, and we can make actual change here. We have the ability. And without Bitcoin, I think it would have been a much more difficult task to do it. But now that we have this decentralized, censorship-resistant money that can actually be used and that it is being used today to go around that old system, that's how we do it. And it is a war. We call it a peaceful revolution, but at the same time, it's a war. There is a war happening right now, whether people actually want to admit that or not at the moment. There's a war over the currency that's going to be used. There's BRICS, there's the US, there's all these other countries in the mix, Russia, who is part of BRICS, but then there's Bitcoin as well. So these people have had control, as she said, enslaved the population for the last 100 years using their fiat money, using their debt-based currency with 4 she had an example of $4 billion in reserve, actual money that they have in the banks. And they have the ability to lend out more than $1 trillion. So that's over 100% of the money that they take in. Fractional reserve banking used to be like for $1, I think you could loan out 10. Since COVID, it's gone up dramatically. And so we're going into quite the financial shitstorm here in the next couple of years. And, you know, if you're watching the show today, you're part of the solution. You're part of the movement who's trying to change things. And I really believe that as well, that even though it seems like such a daunting task, the only way that things ever change and have changed throughout history is with a small group of people. And I'm not saying it's this community, but we're part of it. So I thank you all for being here, for contributing to that. And shout out to the 12-year-old girl who has more common sense and logic than the majority of Canadians nowadays. But at the same time, that's the beauty of kind of where we are right now. That's the future. That's our youth. They're going to be born and raised into this system. They're not going to be going into banks to deposit money. They're not going to be watching the news. They're not going to be trusting the government like we all did, like our parents did, like our grandparents did. Because back then there was 3 options for communication. There was TV, radio, and newspaper. That's it. That's where everybody got their source of information from. And which explains why it's taken so long to actually reprogram people's brains out of that fiat slavery system. So the bad news is that it's going to take a little while for this to happen. But the good news is that we have people like her and many other young kids who are going through the same new life, new decentralized world of actually seeking out the truth and wanting to, and having the ability to do it.